Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie with Wayback Arcade's tech support, and today in this video we're going to go over how to map and how to connect devices to the power console. If you haven't done it already, like and subscribe our YouTube page, hit the notifications, you'll get notified when we do live streams, demonstrating the power console and other notifications. If you haven't already, please watch the Power Console welcome video. It's on the Power Console Guides playlist. It's an overview of how to use the console, and it's a great resource on just the basics of the console. This video will also be on the Power Console Guides playlist, along with other more specific videos. So if you have a more specific question or you just need more information, then you can look there for other videos. And as time goes on, we'll keep adding more videos. Right now, since we just launched, there's just a few videos that you'll need to know, but we'll keep adding more videos as time goes on. Or if you have any questions, or you need something a video on it, just email us and let us know, and we're open to creating more videos. So the power console mapping and adding devices it's very simple. I'm gonna go over it with you. So once you do it once, you'll be able to do it every time. The power console has on the back two USB ports. I have a mouse plugged into the top one and the bottom one's open. You don't really need a mouse unless you're doing some, specific things, but I just have one plugged in. Anyway, so today, the devices I'm going to plug in, I'm going to plug into two controllers. But I have them. But if you have a bunch of devices, you can just plug them into a hub like this. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug my hub into the second USB port. They're both working and functioning, and it doesn't really matter which one you plug in. So I plugged my hub in, and now I have four devices plugged in to the power console. I have my two joysticks, which are plugged in on the inside, and I have Xbox controller, a light controller, and a retro Nintendo light controller plugged in to play my games. If you've watched the welcome video, I went into this a little bit, but each device is plugged into or is designated to a port. Windows divides all your devices into a port, and your port is based on your on your USB hub or your USB port. But it's the Windows scans it, so it's not the same hub, it's not the same port every time. So if you add devices, unplug devices, it could change which port is associated with each device. So, but if you leave everything plugged in the same, it should stay the same, and all your mappings should stay the same. So we need to assign our devices to a port. And we have to remember, because that's how we're going to be able to map our players to our devices. So first, to be able to map your ports, you need to pick a game. I'm going to play Super Mario Brothers, so I'm going to select Nintendo. And like I said in the welcome video, for Big Box, any device plugged into the console can navigate you through Big Box. It's when you get into the games, it's going to matter your buttons and which devices are which ports. So in our favorites video, I favorited Super Mario Brothers, so we're going to select that game. And now we're in the play menu. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to scroll to open RetroArch. RetroArch is the emulator that emulates and that plays all the games on this console. So all your mappings are going to be through RetroArch. So that's why this is very simple to use. We're going to open RetroArch to assign our ports. When you go into the Open RetroArch screen, you will assign your ports there, and you will map your buttons. That's the two things you can do while you're in RetroArch, in the open RetroArch. Later we'll go on to a different in-game RetroArch, and I'll tell you what you do through that. But in open RetroArch, on the play menu, you assign your devices to a port, and you can map your buttons and your joysticks and your D-pads and all that. So we're gonna select open RetroArch. You're gonna open. It's gonna get into the RetroArch screen. Like I said in the other video, whatever device is assigned to port 1 is how you're going to navigate through RetroArch. So it may not be your joysticks, and maybe your controllers or whatever you have. If you can't figure out how to navigate through RetroArch, you can always plug in a mouse, and your mouse will always work there. But let's go see what device is connected. It looks like my joystick 1 is connected. Is port 1. So we're going to go into settings, and you're going to select input. Input is where you will assign your ports. So we're going to port 1, and it looks like joystick 1 is assigned. We're going to assign a joystick 1 to port 1. We're going to go back, button 2. We're going to go to port 2, and we're going to see that joystick 2 is assigned, and we're going to select that. Because I like the way I like to play the console is my joysticks will always be 1 and 2, port 1s and 2, and all my other devices will be 3 and later. So we're going to go back, and we're going to see port 3, and we're going to assign, I like my retro controller to be number 3, to be port 3, this one. And we're going to go back, and we're going to port 4, and we're going to assign the wired or the wireless Xbox controller. And we're going to go back. Now that we've assigned all of our ports to all of our devices, now we can go, and while we're in here, we can go map our buttons. For port 1, I like the default for port 1, the joystick 1. So I'm going to leave all my buttons the same. And the same thing with number 2. I like the default, so we're going to leave that the same too. But port 3, we're going to need to remap port 3 because we have a different controller that only has 4 buttons. So we're going to select the device. We're going to go down, and we're going to remap all the buttons. You're going to press the select button on the console, button 1, and then you'll press what you want. So D-pad up, and we're going to go do that for all of them, all the D-pads. Now button A, I'm going to press the button A because I want A to be A, and I want B to be B, so I'm going to press B. There's no more, we'll go down to select. X and Y don't matter on this controller because there is no X and Y. So we're going to select with the select, and we're going to do start with the start. And that's how you map your buttons on every device. If you want to delete you'll have to connect a keyboard and just and delete the button, so it's blank like this if you need to delete it. And then if you want to just remap, you just press the button that you just select. You can select and just remap, and that's what we did. And then we're going to go back because we've mapped everything we need to map, and we're going to go to port 4, which is my Xbox controller. And we're going to select that, and if there's anything I need to remap, we can remap that. And I can remap, I could show you how to do that. My D-pad is all the same. I'm gonna do the A. I'm gonna do that there. We're gonna do B, which is the bottom one. We're gonna do X. It's not the same as your controller, but you can map it that way if you'd like. I'm just mapping it like the pictures. There, and then the select button, which is the back button on here, and the start button, which is the start button, and you have the left shoulder and the right shoulder, and I'm not going to be using the triggers. I'm not going to map all that. And we don't need anything else. So now that we've mapped the controllers, and like I said, any device, this is exactly how you'd map any device. Light guns, steering wheels, shouldn't have to map your steering wheels. It should automatically map, but if it doesn't, this is exactly how you would do that. And and later on we'll be putting out videos on about mapping light guns and steering wheels and all that. But for now, that's exactly how you'd map that. We're gonna go back, and we're gonna go back again because we're done. Oh, but before we go back, one quick thing here. If you go to hotkeys and under input, and you go to here, menu toggle controller, that is how you would map the coin button. So you just select if something happens and that gets all messed up and you want it mapped like it was when you received it, you just do you select the hold 2 seconds. And then the quit controller combo, again, that's the start button, so you would just do the hold to start for 2 seconds. And then we're going to go back and back again, and we need to save this. So we're going to go to main menu, configuration file, and save current configuration. And we're done. We're going to go back, and we're going to go to quit. And now we can play our game. So we're going to go, and we're going to play. I go scroll to play, select the play. And I'm going to choose 2 players so I can show you how the joysticks and the controllers work. So we're going to press the start button. And now I can play. So I'm gonna pause for a second. So right now, when you set your devices to a port, it maps it to the player number to the port. So player 1 is always port 1, player 2 is port 2, 3 is port 3, and player 4 is port 4. But you can change that if you'd like to just play 2-player games, but you want to use a controller too. So that's very easy to change. But the only way you can change that is when you're in the game. So we're going to go in. Now we're going into the in-game RetroArch. You're going to hold down the coin button. And unfortunately, you have to do these 2 steps 2 different ways. So we did before we entered the game, on the play menu, you set your port, and in the game, you will set your player number. So we're going to go, and we're going to scroll all the way down to controls, and we're going to select controls, and you're going to see all the different ports. If you have already saved a game remap file, if you played this before and say you only played with the 2 joysticks, but now you want to add controllers and you want to save it, you have to go into manage remap, and you're going to delete your previous remap file. We're going to go back, and we're going to save a new one. So we're going to go to port 1, and the player number is mapped port. So we're going to we see that as player 1. You can change it here. I want my port 1, which was my joystick 1, to be player 1. We're going to go back. Same thing with 2. It's mapped port 2, so it's player 2 is assigned to joystick 2. I want to keep that the same, but you can change it if you need to. We're going to go back, and so player 3. So port 3 is assigned mapped port 3, so that's player 3. But I want to, since I only have a 2-player game, I want to assign my retro controller to player 1. So I want this controller, which I mapped as port 3, to be player 1. So you're going to go in and you're going to change it. And we're going to go back. So right now I have joystick 1 and this controller to be player 1. And then we're going to do the same for player 4, or port 4. We're going to see that mapped port is set to player 4. We're going to change that to player 2. So now this controller is going to be set to player 2. So the joystick and the controller will be player 2. And we're going to go back. And then we are going to go up to manage remap files, and we're going to save the game remap file. So now, as long as everything is plugged in, every time I play Super Mario, this is how my setup is going to be, and that's how my game will play. We're going to go back, and then we can just go hold the coin button down and get back into the game. So now we can unpause it, and you're going to see that you can play player 1 with the joystick and the buttons on the console, or you could play with the controller. And I'm going to die so I can show you player 2 quickly. Now we're going to play player 2. You're going to see that I could play player 2 with the joystick and the buttons, or I could play player 2 with the controller. If you just want to disable for your specific game, if you just want to disable your joysticks or your controllers, you do that in the open RetroArch in the play menu. You'll see. So instead of assigning the joystick to or assigning the port to a device, you would just disable that device. But never disable port 1, because until it rescans it, if you can't navigate RetroArch without a port 1. So try not to disable port 1. You can always use your mouse, but I suggest never disabling port 1. So we're going to get out of the game, and that is how you map and you assign devices. I'm going to show you one last thing. We're going to go out of Big Box, because you may not know what device is what. And I'm going to show you how you can determine that, or you don't know what button is what number. I'm going to show you. So we're going to exit. This is where you'll need a mouse. This is not necessary all the time if you know what device is what. So we're going to go in. You're going to need to go into Control Panel. You'll have to connect a keyboard if you can't, if it doesn't show up for you. And then, so you could type that in to search for it. We're going to go into Hardware and Sound. We're going to go into Devices. And then you'll see all your devices over here that are connected to the computer. So you have your keyboard and mouse. You have your game for Windows. This is one of my controllers. These are my joysticks. And this is my other joystick. And that's my monitor. So we're going to right click on one of the devices, and you're going to do game controller settings. And now you can test all your controllers. So USB gamepad, we're going to see which device that is. So we're going to go into properties and make sure you're on the tests page. And we're going to pick up a controller, and I think it's this controller. And we're going to, you could test it and see. So you know that this is this. And here you go. You got the gamepad, and then you got the button. See, that one's button. The select button is assigned to number 9. The start button is number 10. You have the B button is number 3, and the A button is number 2. Unfortunately, this controller, you cannot navigate Big Box because button 1 on Big Box is the select button, and none of these buttons are button 1. So when you go, but this will be good for games because you can go and you can remap these buttons to be whatever you want to play. So now we know what all those buttons do, what button number they are. We're gonna get out of that one, and we're going to see controller for. We're gonna go do controller for game windows, and that is this one. And you can see there the G-pad. You have the analogs. You can see what button is which. A is 1, B is 2, Y is 4, and X is 3. 8 is the start button, and 7 is the back button. And 9 and 10 if you click on the analog sticks. And then you have your triggers, which are 5 and 6 here, or your shoulder buttons, and then you have the trigger, which comes up as the Z-axis. And then you have your joysticks. We got this. Then you have your joysticks. They're the same. You can do the same. You're gonna see you have it's a 8-way, it's a SandWay 8-way joystick. Then you have your buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one is 10, and that one is 7. And then if you check on the other joystick, you'll see that it's the same except for this one's 9 and that one's 10. And then you get out of it. So now you know what button is what number, and it'll help you map your buttons if you have no idea, or if you don't know which controller is which. It'll help you map. It'll help you map which. It'll help you do your mappings. So that is it for the mapping. If you have any questions, you can email us at tech at way-back-arcades.com. So it's tech at way-back-arcades.com, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. And if you have any issues, and that is how you map and add devices. It's very simple. Like I said, both USBs work on the back, so you don't need a hub if you're only connecting 2 devices, but you can add a hub if you have more than 2 devices. If you want to play 4-player, just assign each device as their player. If you want to, have 2 devices the same player, you can do that too. That's what we did in this example. Yeah, so if you have 4 players or 3 players, you have 2 players as the joysticks, and then 1 or 2 players as the controllers, or you can have 4 players as a joystick, or 4-player controllers. The only thing you can't do is 4-player joystick. But there's a lot of options, and I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.